Hello everybody, welcome to my channel, Sarah vs. Sewing, and I'm Sarah, and today my project was upcycling old jeans and turning them into a top. I have been seeing this upcycling of denim trend for a while now, and I wanted to jump on board too and see what I could do. So like I said, it's just old jeans that I had that I didn't wear anymore, and I decided to make a top out of them. Before I made this top, I pretty much made like a bodice block, so for pattern making, and I took my measurements and I made a mock-up of that bodice block, so I pretty much knew everything was gonna fit me, and then I just cut out the shapes that I would need for this pattern, and yeah, that's how I got my top. Okay, this is future Sarah. I was editing this video and I noticed that I forgot to say that I won't be going over the patterns in this video, but I will be making another video reviewing the patterns and the measurements of everything and how I made them. But that was just a little side note. Okay, back to the video. But yeah, so I don't want to talk too much. I just wanted to give that brief overview. But without further ado, let's jump into this video.
I'd like to start with the straps first. And what I'm doing here, well, I had to sew two pieces of material together because for one of my straps I didn't have enough material, but that's why I did that. But if you have long enough material, just go ahead and cut out the length of strap that you need and sew it together. You can really just do a basting stitch. I think I did a regular stitch for the straps, but just do a basting stitch. And I folded, I think it was about an inch and inch and a half width for the width of the strap. And then I just sewed that together, and then I'm going to serge the end of it. I just thought it would look cool because I knew I wanted to serge the bottom ruffles, like the bottom of the ruffle as well, so that's what I'm doing. Okay, next I'm still working with the serger, but now I'm going over to the actual ruffles themselves, and I'm going to be serging the hem of the ruffle. You don't have to do this. You could do a rolled hem as well, and that would work. I would just make sure that your material then is a little bit longer so you can accommodate for that. But yeah, but right here I'm just serging the ends of it. That's just the look that I was going for. I don't know, I thought it would look cool. I like it. Or you can do a zigzag stitch. I'm not sure exactly how that would look, but the effects would be the same, where it keeps the denim from fraying. I cut off a little bit of the denim. I'm not really trying to, but yeah, that's just what it looks like, and that's just also like the shape of the ruffle. But yeah. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and sew the darts down, as you can see, and this is what they look like once sewed down. And now I'm going to go ahead and press them down, and I'm going to press them down facing the sides and not the middle. I am working with the ruffles now. As you can see, I have the top and I have the bottom ruffle, but I'm going to be working with the top ruffle first. So here I'm gathering the ruffles, and I'm using a basting stitch, and I had my but my stitch length at 4.5. I usually have it at 5, but I just did 4.5. It still works, and I only did one row of thread. You can do 2, but I just did one this time. This is the top ruffle, as I was saying, and I'm showing you guys how I pin my ruffles. I kind of struggle sometimes with getting like the gathers even. I need to work on that. But this is pretty much what people recommend to do. They pin the left side first, and then so the front, and then pin the back, and then put a pin in the middle, and that pretty much helps with spacing. Right here, I'm doing like a figure 8 around my needle in that motion, and it's like puts a stop, so like when you're gathering the other side, that side's not really pulling, and it just helps you to work with each side individually. After you have pinned your gathers in place and made sure everything's spaced out evenly, you can go ahead and sew it to your front bodice piece, just like this, and my seam allowance is at 1/2 inch. In the same manner how I pinned the first ruffle to the front bodice is how I'm pinning the second ruffle. You could sew both of these ruffles together like at the same time. So how I had the first ruffle to the front bodice, you can place your second ruffle there as well and just sew them both at the same time, but I find that a little harder to do, but you want to make sure that you gathered your second ruffle as well the same way you did with the first, and then pin and then sew. Okay, so now I am sewing the facing on to the shirt, to the front of the shirt, and also I'm sewing my straps in. My straps are about 4.5 inches from the side seams, and I'm gonna sew that on. And this is how I pinned it down, and I'm just gonna sew along the top, and my seam allowance is at 1/2 inch. When sewing anything together, it's important to constantly check and make sure no fabric is like bunching or that it's gathered in the wrong place. Make sure everything's laying flat. Okay, I sewed the facing and the straps in, and I made sure to back stitch at the top and that when I'm done as well. I'm currently going to be working with the back of the shirt now, and I'm attaching the lining to like the back straps. I used this photo earlier to show you the lining and the fabric, and this is the only items that are being lined in this outfit, and so I don't have any like raw or unfinished edges for the back. So right now I'm going to go ahead and iron my lining pieces, and then I'm sewing it. I don't have footage of me sewing it, but I will show you what it looks like when it's completed. Also, I needed to note real quick, when you are sewing the lining to your main fabric, at the top you need to leave a small little opening for your strap, to connect your strap to the back. I measured 5 inches from the seam allowance, not from the seam allowance, from like the whole fabric, so including the seam allowance, it was 5 inches. Later on, when I tried it on, I noticed that I needed to measure over a little bit more, so really just take an old shirt that has like straps or something and measure that distance and see where you really need to set it in. but 5 inches works. But honestly, I would have moved it over a little bit more to 5.5. But remember that leave the small hole, and I'll be sewing that up later. Okay, so what I did to attach the lining is that I had the lining facing the right side of the fabric, and I sewed along the top, the ends that meet in the middle, and the bottom, and I left where it's going to be attached to the side of the shirt. And since they are open for the sides, that's how you flip it inside right. And now I'm just going to attach it to the sides of the shirt, and that's what I'm doing now, and my seam allowance is at 1/2 inch. Okay, and now it's time to make the buttonholes. That's what I'm doing right here. This is actually my first time using this. I just don't use a lot of buttons, but anyways, it was really fun to use, and it's really cool to watch it work, and I'm going to be using it more often now. I had to practice a few times beforehand, but you know, it came out pretty well. Okay, so I just finished sewing the buttonholes with my machine, but now I'm going to go ahead and sew the buttons on by hand. Alright, I just finished sewing the buttons on, and this is what they look like. Okay, so now I'm going to do a ladder stitch, and I'm going to attach the straps on. Okay, I am stitching the strap onto the shirt. The thread I'm using is black. As you can see, I could have used white and could have stuck with white, but I just decided to use this black thread, so that's why. But you can use whatever thread color you want. And as you can see, when I get to the actual strap itself, I sew through the strap and then continue the pattern like a ladder stitch on the other side, and I just keep going back and forth with it. And that's how I attach the strap. You don't have to hand sew this, you could just sew over it with your sewing machine, but I really just didn't want the thread to just to show through, so that's why I'm doing the ladder stitch. And with your ladder stitch, you want to just sew it all the way through, and you just want to sew it like normally, so very close together. I know it's hard to see right now, but that's what I did. Okay, so now what you're going to do, you're going to pin the bias tape, is what I'm calling it, to the first ruffle, so like the ruffle that's gonna be like the top one, and you want to pin it. And I also went ahead and sewed it, and my seam allowance is at 1/2 inch. And then I'm going to pin on the bottom ruffle. I'm doing it separately, just so I can make sure everything stays pinned in place, but if you want, you can go ahead and do them both at the same time. Okay, so as I was just saying, I went ahead and sewed the top ruffle and the bias tape together, which is also, the bias tape is going to be the elastic casing as well. But I went ahead and sewed those two together, and now I'm going to sew the bottom ruffle to those two items. Like I said, you could have done this all at the same time, but I'm doing it separately. And I'm just going to stitch along that same seam allowance too, which is 1/2 inch. press down your elastic casing 1/2 inch and press it with your iron, and remember to use metal pins when ironing. Okay, so I am going to be putting the elastic in now. So this, I'm going to be putting it in when I'm calling the casing, and basically go ahead and like measure the width of your back. I measure mine to be 13 inches. Later on I decide, like when I try it on, it's a little big, so I'd probably go ahead and make it 12 and a half, at least for me, for the future. But anyways, so I'm putting the elastic in right there, and I'm gonna line it up with the edge first, and I'm gonna set it next to that seam line right there. I'm gonna fold up the edge and fold the top half down, just like that. And yeah, I tried for a little bit, and you'll see coming up, I tried to stitch in the ditch. I've never really been able to do it, so I don't know why I thought I could do it now and stretch the elastic at the same time. But I really changed my mind and have to change things up a little bit, but you'll see that in a second. I'm first just sewing down the sides to each end with the elastic inside. Okay, so yeah, I struggled with this for a good little bit. I cut out a lot of the footage though, but yeah, I was trying to stitch in the ditch and stretch the elastic at the same time. Yeah, that doesn't go over so well. But yeah, that's what I was trying to do. Because what I did next helped me a lot. So you'll see coming up in a second, but I decided to just do a basting stitch so I can hold everything in place, because trying to pull it and do all this other stuff is too much. So I run 2 basting stitches through, but so for the first one, I just ran it through like somewhere in the middle, and I'm working with like the right side facing down so I can see the back of it, and I'm making sure that I have enough fabric pulled down over my seam allowance. In some places I messed up, but you want to pull it down and have enough so when you do fold it up, it still covers that seam from where you sewed the elastic casing on to the ruffles. Yeah, so that's what I'm doing right here. And then I run another one through closer to the edge. And then I go ahead and sew the actual where I sewed the actual seam. So for that second basting stitch, I fold up the ends, and then I run like the basting stitch in through, and then I go with the regular seam allowance and pretty much sew over that, and then I removed the basting stitch. It took a bit of time because I had to remove each stitch like individually, so it's not easy to get out of denim. And I don't recommend doing this if it's a different fabric too, but denim's sturdy, so I that's not really a problem. I didn't record myself doing everything with the elastic casing because that took a lot of time. But that's what I did, and that's what I did to get it done. But now I'm sewing finally the back of the shirt to the front of the shirt. Sewing the top part of the back was hard, so I kind of sewed it in the middle and did that part first, and then I go ahead and flip the shirt around so the top of it is facing like downwards towards me. And this might not be proper, but what I'll do when I'm sewing through thick materials, I'll use something to like leverage my presser foot to keep it elevated, and then I'll go ahead and manually turn my wheel. Yeah, that's what I'm doing, and then I'm also using a denim needle, so that's helping a lot. But yeah, that's what I'll do. I didn't get it perfect, but it was hard and I was tired at this point. But just take your time with it. Okay, I'm still just trying to work the needle through and make sure to back stitch as I stated before. And you want to do the same thing on the other side of your shirt, and just like that, your shirt is complete.
Okay, that was the end of the try on portion. I hope you guys enjoyed it, but before I let you guys go, I just wanted to pop back on and talk about the top a little bit more. So here it is. I love it. I think it turned out really cute. Between the front and the back. There's really no concept or other further inspiration for the shirt. I'm sure I'm seeing this silhouette somewhere, but I didn't have too much material to work with, so in my head I'm like kind of planning out like, okay, I have this much material, what can I do with it? I knew the top needed to be short, like kind of cropped, and I was like, but I really like ruffles, so let me see if I can do the ruffles too. But yeah, so that's how this top came to be. It took me 3 pairs of jeans to create this top. Of course, that might differ depending on what size you are. So just a heads up there. For the future, I don't know. So the part that I really struggled with for this top was the back and like the elastic casing for it. I need to have this elastic casing so it can stretch over my head and my shoulders when I'm getting it on. But of course you don't have to have like a back like this. If you had a normal back, you could add a zipper on the side as well, and that should take care of that problem as far as fitting. But yeah, so that's just how I have it. But for the future, if you still want to keep the elastic casing, I don't think you need something so thick. I just personally wanted something thicker. And I would probably make it a little bit smaller. Mine is at 13 inches right now, but I'd probably make it 12.5. I believe I mentioned that earlier. But also when you're choosing your elastic, you just want to make sure it's stretchy enough. So elastics, sometimes they can have different stretch capabilities, I suppose. And so mine is a very thick and it's not too stretchy. It doesn't stretch that much, but there are like thick elastics but softer that will stretch further. So just be mindful of that when you're buying your elastic. So here's the top, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope you guys experiment with this pattern. Change it up, do whatever, use denim, don't use denim, it doesn't matter. And don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. I was gonna say to this video, to my channel. Subscribe, like the video, and subscribe to my channel. But yeah, if you have any questions, please leave down below. And as always, who do you think won? Me or sewing? Please let me know as well. Until next time, take care.